All right, so you decided to start a podcast. You made your minimum plan to launching your podcast. You clearly defined your whys. You came up with the episode flow. You came up with the title, description, and artwork. You discovered the essential hardware that you need for podcasting. Now it's time to talk about the essential software that you need to start your podcast. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to tell you just what I suggest that you use based off of the hundreds of podcasters I've conversed with and talked to. If you want to think about something outside of this, then do your own homework, but it's going to be extra work to figure that out. If you have something that already is working for you, just use that. You don't need to change it. But if you don't have anything, I just say pick this and move on. Don't overthink it. There's a lot of options out there. It can get overwhelming very quickly. And it's just important to just make the decision, move on, and don't waste time so that you can get to launching your podcast. The first piece of software that I would suggest if you're doing an interview style is to use Calendly. It's Calendly. It's a software that lets you create a calendar, so you can go in there and choose the availability that you have. That way you can just send a link to the guest and say, choose the time that you want, and they can choose the time slot that works best for them to do the podcast interview. You can also embed forms in Calendly. So if you want people to answer a few questions or give you links to their social media or answer some preliminary questions, then you can include those in the form as part of the process so people can click the day and time that they want. They can put their name, email address, answer your questions, push submit, and then they're good to go to be scheduled on your podcast. The reason this is important is because let's say the guest needs to reschedule. Well, they're able to reschedule on their own. They can go in there, edit the time and day that they chose and choose another one. Or if they need to cancel, they can do all this without having to communicate with you. And as you get more and more interviews and more people communicating with you, it can become overwhelming very quickly. And having a tool for scheduling is going to be essential for streamlining your process. Now, Calendly is not expensive. It's $8 a month, and I've got a link to that in the description. The next software is going to be your interview software. And I've narrowed those down to two main interview softwares. If you want to use anything outside that, then you're going to have to do your own homework, or I can create a separate video for you on those. But the main two softwares people are using, I'd say 95% or more of podcasters out there are using these softwares, is Zoom.us, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with nowadays with the whole coronavirus thing, and StreamYard. Zoom.us is ideal, so especially for audio-only podcasts, but also is pretty good for video. And then StreamYard is ideal for live streaming and video as well, because you can put some overlays and make it a little bit more fancy. If you're doing an audio-only podcast, I 100% suggest Zoom.us over StreamYard. And if you're doing a live stream video podcast, I 100% suggest StreamYard over Zoom.us. I've got a whole video talking about the pros and cons of both of these for podcasting, which I'll put in the card above. Basically, choose between one of these two platforms and just move on. Don't overthink it. If you know someone that's using a software that is really good and working for them, then go ahead and listen to them. I'm not telling you not to use anything else. I'm just telling you, if you don't have anywhere to start from where you're at right now, don't overthink it. Choose either Zoom.us or StreamYard based on what works for you. Zoom.us is currently roughly $15 a month, and StreamYard's roughly $20 a month. I've got an affiliate link in the description. I think you get like a free $20, and I get $10 if you sign up. It's a one-time bonus. So I get a little bit if you're going to go ahead and sign up. You don't currently have a plan, so I appreciate if you use the affiliate link. But no pressure. You can go direct. It's fine as well. Now that you have the calendar software and the interview software, the next step is going to be editing the audio. I definitely suggest Audacity. It's a free program you can download from online. It's open source. Or GarageBand if you have Apple or Mac. Most people use Audacity even if they're on an Apple. I just say GarageBand because I know a lot of podcasters do use it, but I'm not as familiar with it. Just choose something that you're familiar with or people around you are using, but definitely Audacity if you don't have anything already in mind. I'll put a link in the description for that. It's a free software, and there's only a couple things you need to know on how to use it, specifically for podcasting. And if you're having trouble figuring that out, just let me know in the comments, and I'd be happy to make a separate tutorial video on how to use Audacity as far as just the bare minimum of what you need for doing a podcast. So now you got your calendar software, you got an interview software, you got their editing software. The next software that you need is going to be your podcast host. So it's the place where you're going to upload your audio file and it's going to push it out to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all these other places where podcasts sit. There's got to be somewhere to host your audio file. And you're definitely going to want to host. Like if you release a podcast episode and you have tons and tons of people downloading it all at once because it just released, that bandwidth can really hurt servers. So podcast hosts specialize in this optimization, and it's important to just use a podcast host so you don't have a lot of delays and people downloading your episode, and it's a lot simpler. I suggest Libsyn, Libsyn. I chose it because it's what all the big podcasters use, and they've been in the industry forever. There's a lot of other hosts out there. The main thing that I want you to just take away from this is if you're going with someone else, make sure in the fine print you own the content. There's some major players in the podcast hosting space that in the fine print says that they own the content. So if you create hundreds of episodes of your podcast, later on you want to do something else with it. I don't know what these companies are going to do, but they could potentially, do something bad or become unethical, and they're owning your content. So go with a host that you own the content. If you don't know any hosts, just go with Libsyn. It's the easiest thing. It's like $5 to $15 a month, depending on your plan. All right, so I just walked you through all the essential software you need for your podcast. It's going to be roughly $30 to $50 a month, depending on the plans that you choose. And it's definitely worth it to go with these high caliber solutions that are designed for the needs that you want. If you don't have the money to do all of this, there's definitely cheaper ways to do it. But as far as having everything handled as seamlessly as possible, $30 to $50 a month is what I would expect to be paying to start a podcast. It's a marginal cost and it's definitely worth it. Again, there's tons of software out there, tons of solutions. You can save money. You can go with different solutions. You can find ones that work better or may not work as well. But I'm going with what the bulk of the podcast industry is using. And I'm asking you to not overthink it, because if you're going to have to spend an entire day researching all this stuff, is it really worth your time when you could be launching your podcast? So just choose these softwares and move on and get your podcast launched. You can always change the software and tweak it later. You own all your content. If you want to switch to another podcast host later, there's a lot of migration tools and the people can help you with that. So just choose these and move on. And if you find that you don't have the solutions that you're looking for in these solutions, then that's the time to look for something else. I'm curious, what softwares are you going to use in your podcast? Are you going to be using the ones I suggested here in the video? Are you currently using any softwares that overlap with these tools and you have your own already set up? Do you have friends that are podcasters who are suggesting tools other than these that you're just going to listen to them and choose those tools, which is perfectly fine? Let me know in the description and let everyone else know what you're using so we can help each other. Just put in the description what tools and softwares you're planning to use for your podcast. Now, again, as I mentioned in previous videos in this series, I'm creating this content for you for free. A lot of other podcasters out there create online courses and they're charging money for it. All I ask for is some engagement. So hit the like button, leave a comment, maybe check out my podcast if it's something that's interesting to you. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Just engage with me. Let me know if this is helpful. That's all I ask for. I'm not asking for any money. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen in today. I hope this is valuable information for you. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. We'll be talking about the introduction episode. So the episode 0 or episode 1, the first episode that you create, we're going to be talking about what you should be thinking about for that. Thanks.